Wedding Florist friends, and welcome to the Wedding Florist Social Podcast. This is the podcast for wedding florists to learn all about acing their online presence. I'm your host, Vicky Laffey, and as a wedding florist of over 10 years now and a certified digital marketer, I want to help you get the right clients, get more followers, and never be stuck for content ideas again. Click the link in my description to get your free Wedding Florist Guide to Social Media Content Creation today. Well, hey, you guys, and welcome back to the Wedding Florist Social Podcast. I'm very excited about today because we are interviewing, or should I say I am interviewing, Sam Jacobson from Ideaction Consulting. And for anyone who's not familiar with Ideaction Consulting's work, they very much think along the same lines as me in terms of this whole thing of attracting the right client as opposed to just all the clients and any clients and as many followers on social media as you can and things like that. So I really wanted to kind of have a good nerd out with Sam about this and, have him talk, because you guys are used to hearing me talking and chattering away about things. So it's nice to hear someone else's voice. So Sam, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm glad to pop on and talk about all things floral.
Brilliant. And I'm sure you'll all agree with me, guys. He does have a voice for radio. Absolutely. You could just listen to that all day, couldn't you? It's funny that you bring that up. My brother and I, he and I are actually, we had the same kind of gravelly baritone voice. We get it from our dad. And at one point he went to take training on voiceover, and he was going to do voiceover work. And it was funny because I thought, I could get into that too. Different career path, though. You should read audiobooks or something. Maybe we'll get you on to just read the newspaper out to us or something like that. Anything. So Sam, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I've followed you on social media for a while. I'm always seeing your Facebook ads pop up. So obviously you're doing something right. I want to sort of have a good chat to you about this concept of, the importance of attracting your ideal client, and the right client for you as opposed to all of the clients. So, I'm always talking about this with my crowd, the importance of working with the right people. With my field, it involves a lot of social media and websites, and that's kind of what I teach people about. And I always tell people to sort of steer away from this idea of, this desire, this need to kind of get all of the followers on social media, or, people are so focused on getting this amount of likes up, or they get disheartened because they don't have too many, or they only got one extra follower after posting 2 reels a day for the last week or something. So people are often kind of obsessed about this. And I just wanted to talk about the importance of attracting the right people as opposed to getting those numbers up. So, I guess, first of all, what difference would you say it could make when you attract or book the right clients? I guess that's a good place to start, I think.
Boy, life is easier. It is easier. It is more fun. And as a business owner, it's often more lucrative when you get the right types of clients. I got to tell you, when I first started doing marketing and sales work, I was a bit of a naysayer when it came to the ideal client. I'm like, anybody who has enough money in their bank account to write a check and cover the cost of the services, that seems pretty ideal to me. And what I realized over the course of, being in weddings for the last 16 years is that you want to really focus on the kind of clients that are easy to work with, that appreciate your work, and that will ultimately give you the kind of portfolio pieces that you want to then go out and try and attract more clients. I remember when I worked so I have three different jobs, including the coaching and consulting work that
Busy
we
man.
do right now. Yeah, and over the last 15, 16 years in the wedding industry. So before I did consulting and coaching work, I was actually the director of operations for a very large floral and design and planning company.
Oh, wow.
And in Texas, and we had 75-ish full-time employees. We had 65,000 square feet of warehouse. We did 100 plus events a year. And before that, I did operations and sales for a venue that did in-house catering. And I remember working with a food and beverage director, and I was doing the sales work and he was doing the production work. And there was a point in time at which I was selling anything that I could because I didn't have to service or produce the events. And we got some real Lulus in there. And I remember he came up to me one day with the GM and he's like, we got to have a conversation because I love that you're meeting the sales numbers, but unfortunately it's really hard to execute these events when we're working with people who are not a good fit. And so he gave, we were very good friends, and he gave me a limit of 5. He's like, you get 5 people who are awful to work with, and that's it. After that, you have to take care of them. And
that's fair.
Yes, and that's fair enough. I was like, I could shake on that. But I think for me, that was a lesson very early on that yes, you can get money. Yes, you can sign a contract. Yes, you can book somebody and fill a date on a calendar. But what is it going to be like to work with that person for, weeks or months or even over a year? What is it going to be like on the wedding day? And those are really big factors, especially as you do mature as a business owner and you don't have to take anything that walks in the door.
Absolutely. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Absolutely. For me, that was kind of back in, I think, 2015, 2016. I can never remember exactly. But, I was established back in 2011. So I spent the first few years of my business, like you say, you're just happy to take anyone who wants to give you money in exchange for flowers, really. And then I just... I came to this realization. It was actually one August where I did 14 weddings, and there's only me, by the way, in my business, and I did 14 weddings plus running a retail shop as well. And I was absolutely exhausted. So this was every other day on average that I was doing a wedding, and at the end of it, I looked at my bank balance. I looked at my kind of energy balance, and I was like, I do not feel the benefit of having done 14 weddings. And the reason why was because they were all teeny tiny, bouquet in a buttonhole kind of small things. And not that there's anything wrong with that if people want it, but for me, that meant they weren't ideal clients. So, I was working. You work just as much, I think, for a smaller wedding as you do for a larger wedding in terms of the planning aspect of it. So I wouldn't have minded working so hard if it wasn't, if my bank balance was higher at the end of it. So something had to change there. So yeah, I'm sure you know that feeling.
Yeah, I think, along those lines, I love the idea of the bank balance. And if you look at deposits and withdrawal that you put in there, it's not just one account where you've got an actual financial bank balance. There's also creativity and having a bank balance on that. So after you've been in business for several years, the things that excited you when you were first starting out tend not to excite you anymore. Bigger, better, grander, all of the things. And especially with floral design, I think it's really important because most floral designers are really drawn to the creative aspect of the work. I don't think that floral designers want to be marketers. I don't think that floral designers want to be salespeople. I don't think that they want to be administrators or, work in their bookkeeping applications. I think the floral designers want to design flowers. And so when you go through and you think about the quality time that you have with the floral design, if you're getting tapped on all of the different aspects like marketing and sales and social media and website and client management, and if your retreat and what fills your cup is designing floral, but you aren't designing floral that sparks you, that fills your cup, then you're going to run out of funds in the creative account as well as the financial account. And usually you have to have one or the other. You've either got to have a lot of money but not much creativity, or tons of creativity and not much money. It's obviously ideal when you have a lot of money and a lot of creativity, but if you have not much money and not much creativity, you're literally burning the candle at both ends. You're taking massive withdrawals and you're lighting the company up on both ends, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when you're a one-man band, there's only you, and there is no business without you. So you have to do what feels right for you, what is good for you, what keeps you going, and what excites you, and all that sort of stuff. So in terms of actually, attracting these ideal clients, I mean, for a start, the term ideal client, I think is a term that's kind of bandied around a lot, and people have heard of it and they don't really know what it means. But I think, it essentially means the right client for you, the kind of client you enjoy working with and who's good for you in your business. But, in terms of actually attracting them, your online presence is absolutely key. And this is kind of the basis of what I teach. So, for anyone out there who doesn't bother posting on their socials or updating their site, this is for you. I see you. So what can you suggest some changes that people can make to their website and the socials to start attracting the right sort of people for them? And how do they even know who the right person is for them?
Yeah, that's great. Let's unpack that for sure, because when you know this, you find the secret to your business success. You mentioned in the top of the podcast that there are these vanity metrics out there of how many likes or how many follows or what the engagement level is for these. People can call them vanity metrics. At the end of the day, what you really got to decide is how many bookings do you need? How much business do you need? And that's always the first thing to start with. And then when you go through and you start with, okay, this is what I need to support my business, then you can identify how many clients do you need to then book, and what do those clients want to buy? And when you do that, you come up with a much smaller number. And I think that that's really the first step, is recognizing that you don't need a bunch of followers. You just need 10, 12, 14, 30, however many clients that you need to book. That's how many people you need to reach. And all the rest of the people who are on your socials or on your website, those people are just noise. They are distractions from what your purpose is, which is to connect with that very specific, much smaller set of people. And when you go through and you think about what does that person want to buy from you, you first have to start off with, what does that person become motivated by? What makes them tick? What drives decisions, not just for floral or for their wedding or for their event or their milestone celebration, but what drives them in general? How do they make decisions about travel? How do they make decisions about friends? How do they make decisions about what to do on the weekends or where to go out to dinner, or if they even go out to dinner, or do they prefer to cook at home? You've got to know what it is that drives their motivation on the daily. And when you know that, then you can start to tap into it with messages that connect with that motivation that they have. So really identifying, that trigger, that psychological trigger is super important. So that's the what. And then the second part is the how. How do you then communicate those messages in a way that's going to feel natural and comfortable for the way that particular buyer, your ideal client, likes to communicate? So you've got the what, which are the psychological triggers, and then you've got the how, which are the communication preferences. And we can talk more about that, but it's really fascinating.
Big topic, isn't it?
Because not everybody communicates the same way, and not everybody's motivated by the same thing. So you got to dig into those things before you ever get started.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just to relate this to any florists out there listening, not any, all of the florists. There's millions of florists listening to this right now. So to relate that to you guys, when this happened to me, and after that realization that I mentioned earlier, and where I thought, something has to change, and at that point my style had become a lot more. It was becoming my style. At first, it wasn't just some stuff I was making for people's weddings. I was developing my own style, and it was becoming a lot more luxurious, and it involved more flowers. And I was basically outgrowing. I was taking a next step in business, really, I suppose. And it was after that realization that I really thought, my focus pre this was very, how many weddings have I got on this year? But I came to the realization that didn't matter if they were all bouquets and buttonholes or things that I didn't enjoy doing or things that wouldn't benefit my portfolio. and I started to be more intentional about it. And my focus changed from that, how many weddings I've got to how much money am I earning this year? So I want, my ideal is to, do less weddings and earn the same amount of money. And you can only do that if you sort of put your prices up and make sure you show your worth online and things like that. So it's tricky because I think it's something, it's hard to get your head around, isn't it? Like in terms of how can I do less weddings and earn more money? Surely less weddings means less money. It's tricky, right?
Yeah, it is. There are lots of different ways to earn more money. And I think it's really about making more money rather than just driving more, sales. Mm-hmm. That's something, especially for floral designers, in my work as an operations director, we were doing millions of dollars a year in sales and flowers. And, if your percentages for profit are off by a little bit, that could be thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in difference in how much money you make. Because at the end of the day, it's not just the revenue, it's the revenue minus the expenses. So for floral designers, especially, you've got to make sure that you're going through and finding the right types of clients, the right types of projects, and you're putting things together creatively, not just for how it looks, but also creatively in ways that are making it easy to install, easy for other people to help out if you are hiring contract labor to come in and work, and lots of other factors that are going to figure out ways to reduce the amount of events that you do. So, ideal clients could be not just the kind of design or aesthetic that they want, but it could also even be just the location and the venue that they want to use. When I was doing operations, we went through and we identified, 5 to 10 different venues in our market that were really easy for us to do installations in. And as everybody knows, like, especially if you're working in the ceiling or, if you've got big installs that require on-site setup and you can't do all the design work in the studio, you've got to really factor in even just how many steps it is from your truck to the table where you're going to be putting the floral installation in. So even things like what venue are they getting married at is part of the ideal client profile, because it will impact your bottom line and how much you have to work.
100%. Yeah. I teach people about this in detail in my Florist Foundations course, but you've got to think about what's good for you as a business owner in terms of what's good for the bank balance. And where I live in an area, I'm not sure about where you are, Sam, but I live in an area that we're very, very lucky. We have many English stately home that, was once a stately home, but is now a wedding venue up in the north of England here. And, we have a lot of weddings happen up here. People come from all the way around the world. I've had clients from the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all over the world who come here because they maybe went to university here, or they just love the area, or, so, I've got a lot of experience of these different wedding venues, and some are, an absolute pain to set up in, or, there's one in particular, for example, where the room that you have your wedding ceremony and your wedding breakfast in is also used for actual breakfast for the hotel guests on the morning. So you've only got like this tiny, minute amount of time when you're setting up. You have to be ready and then rush in, and and every time I get a wedding inquiry for there, it's I sort of do a sigh inside of my mind, and but I know that I have to bear that in mind. So if somebody's asking for a certain thing, I have to say, well, we actually won't have time to set that up. That's a limitation of the venue, but so that's just an example, of course, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's certain venues that are an absolute breeze. The staff are lovely. They help you out when you get there, or you can pretty much park at the door to load up, or they have storage on a night time, because here we tend to come back and pick up our vases or vases, as you guys say, the next day rather than at midnight. And so little things like that can make all the difference. And I think for me, as a florist and as a business owner, I just love to work with people who give me the creative control. That's kind of my ideal. I do not do micromanagers or people who from the outset come and tell me I am having white roses and pink roses and eucalyptus and list all the things. I'm like, okay, let's take a step back here. So, when we're talking about the right people, that means different things to everybody, doesn't it? And there's no, otherwise it would be really easy. We could sit here and tell you on the podcast, list these things. These are what an ideal client is. That would be super easy and everyone would know. But it's different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting just in what you brought up there about the creative control that's on one side of the spectrum, and then somebody who wants to tell you what to do with the floral design is on the other, and then there's this whole range in the middle. Like that right there is one thing for you to nail down when you're thinking about your ideal client. Do I want to work with somebody who is going to give me complete creative license? Do I want to work with somebody who is going to tell me what to do, like fill this order? Here's my secret Pinterest board. I'd like you to replicate this, please. Or is it somebody who wants to collaborate with you and partner through the creativity? Just those are just three different options, but you would want to go through and identify which one of those three do you prefer? And then you can start asking other questions that will start to round out some of the other areas that will fit that profile. Typically, people who are, control freaks, themselves don't mix well with other people who are control freaks.
Maybe that's my problem.
Butt heads. It could be. It could be. Yeah. I mean, and it's something that I think you'll run into frequently. We have 4 different buyer types that we talk about that we use as general profiles for ideal clients: the relator, the analyzer, the boss, and the dreamer. Okay. And the relator wants to connect with the world through relationships with other people. The analyzer wants to connect to the world with information and expertise. The boss wants to connect to the world with getting things done, action. And the dreamer is all about ideas and possibilities. So the bosses, for instance, the boss's profile craves attention and craves control more than anything else. That's what they want. They want control. And their biggest fear is losing control of the situation. And so when, like for you, for instance, if you do not want people who are telling you, I want this and I want that, and I'm going to micromanage every part, I'm going to ask about the cost and the line item of everything that you do. I'm going to nickel and dime everything to death, and I'm going to question all of your expertise. That's going to be that is your flawed client, not your ideal client. And so you would want to make sure that you are putting out content and creating messages that are going to miss the mark when it comes to the things that type of buyer, that boss type buyer, is looking for on your online presence. And instead, you would want somebody who's willing to trust you and who wants to follow you, and somebody who believes in your creativity and wants to give you that freedom to do what it is that you do best. And so that's just one component of all the different things that you've got to factor in as you profile your ideal client and figure out the messages that you're going to use to target them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's different for everyone. And, if you want to just be told what to do and do 100 weddings a year and on your own and stuff, that's fine. Put that sort of message out there. Right. This is the benefit of me having a, this is why I put things like an inquiry form on my website in place. Completely overhaul the website and overhaul the sort of pictures I put out there on social media. For example, my client isn't, they're not low spenders as a general rule. And, they trust me and things like that. So they don't go for smaller things like, I guess you guys might hopefully for you have kind of passed that whole mason jar burlap wrap kind of trend.
I think for the most part, although it's still alive in some places.
Yeah, you still get the odd request. So they my clients wouldn't go for that, and if they did, they'd be surprised at how much I charged them for it anyway. So I wouldn't then put that sort of stuff out there. I wouldn't put pictures of that out there just because someone asked me to do it for a wedding, because then that would attract more of those people, and more of those people who want that, which isn't floristry to me. It's you're putting baby's breath in a mason jar. It's it's anyone could do that. So it's what you put out there is what you get back, and it filters people out, right? Like my inquiry form, for example, if somebody somehow passes through the many stages of the process and slips through the net and, sees me on Instagram and then comes to my website and, eventually does get to the inquiry form and still thinks I'm for them and fills it in, I can see at that stage through the questions that I ask on there that hang on, this person needs educating a little, or maybe they're not right for me. And then I can kind of either nip that in the bud or put it on the right track from there. Because there are some people who just, they're very nice people and they might be an ideal client. They just need a little bit of educating. But there are other people who have no clue. They are, they're either control freaks, or they are, people who just, they want 20 centerpieces for like $500 or pounds, wherever you are in the world. And that's never going to happen. So at that stage, my online presence will weed them out, because all I have to do is send them an email and say, like, hey, I'm free on that date, but it's going to cost you about 20 times that much. And at that stage, all they've done is that, all it's cost me is an email, and I haven't met with them. I haven't spent all that time designing with them and chatting with them and all that sort of thing. So, it can make a huge difference to your process and ensure that you are, you have a higher proportion of those right clients coming through to you for consultations, doesn't it?
Yeah, Ian, I think the process is really important that you explain, because that filtering is something that you can have your online presence and your website do for you. A traditional sales model would be to get as many people to the showroom floor as possible, or to get as many people into your studio as possible. And for some people, that's important, and some people that's doable. But I think many people who are in the event industry doing floral design work or other work are solopreneurs. They're people who are, like you said, one man shows. And because of that, we have to be protective of the time, and you can't spend time with everybody who wants to come in. But also, we talk about educating the clients. The education doesn't have to occur over the phone or direct one-on-one correspondence via email. Education can occur and probably should occur, not just for the sake of your business and your time, but also for the time and interest of the reader online. In social media, and in blog post content on your website, even in the copy of your website. So for instance, if you find yourself saying the same thing over and over and over again to clients or potential clients when they inquire, that kind of information should be put out in engaging, interesting ways on your social and on your website and in your blog content. So as an example, if you're running into people who are always asking you, how can you turn my Pinterest board into, something that's produced at my wedding? Then you could write a blog post and do several social media posts about how Pinterest does a good job inspiring, but not educating how much things cost. Yeah. And so, I think one of the things that I see with floral designers, especially, and if you're doing this, I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. I just don't think that it's as powerful and impactful is if you're putting out there, like, look at these swoon-worthy bridal bouquets. Aren't they dreamy? Or, I love this centerpiece. Thanks, Matt and Anastasia, for, letting me design it. Like, that means nothing, literally nothing to the person who's looking at it. They see another pretty floral arrangement. And what you would want to do instead is you would want to put some information below it that talks about something to do with what it is that you've created and how that helps either solve a problem or provide joy or pleasure for the person who's reading it. And without that connection of the explanation or the content below the post or next to the post or providing context for the post, it means very, very little. Your work has no context. There's no meaning. The meaning comes from the context. And so the designer who does that is the one that is not only going to get more interest, but also have better educated, self-educated people who inquire.
Yeah, absolutely. I see what you mean about that not being as powerful. It's not wrong as such. I think, it's nice to shout about your work occasionally. And in a certain sense, people will be looking for pictures of that venue where they are also getting married. but it's not as powerful. Like, somebody sitting there reading that and go, I don't know who Matt and Anastasia are. What is that? Why is this relevant to me? What does it mean?
Nobody cares. Nobody really cares about Matt and Anastasia. What they care about is seriously, what they care about is this person who's in this story that's being told similar to me? Is this a hero that I can identify with? And if it is, or a character, and in this story it would be a hero, a character that I can identify with. And if I do, what will I get that this character is going through? What will happen to me as well? People don't want information, they want transformation. And you have to show how the flowers transform something in their life. And that transformation is typically what they want that they don't have yet, and then getting that thing. And so your floral designs are not about, they're not a piece of art that is going to sit for 6 hours and have people admire it. It's got to fulfill an emotional need that the people have. And so you must identify what emotional need is being met with your floral design. And then you've got to create that kind of context in the story that you're telling that the floral design creates or helps to create. Yeah,
absolutely. Probably a more obvious example of that would be, having just come out the other side of the pandemic, and there's a lot of couples getting married, and once weddings have opened back up again, for us that was kind of July time last year, and there was a whole lot of weddings happening that were postponements that people had been postponed for the last year or two, and to kind of connect with people, myself included, a lot of people were posting and not just saying, here's this pretty picture. It was kind of relating to emotions and sort of saying, we've been through 3 postponements together. I've had couples whose relatives had sadly passed away and stuff in that time. And, there were all the emotions that comes along with all of this waiting and stuff. It was getting that across in the posts for other people who were also, their weddings were coming up, and they were like, oh, brilliant, I'm so looking forward to this finally happening. Now things have opened again, so it was kind of connecting with people on an emotional level. And telling a story, tell people what you've been through together, as what it's been like working with them, and what it's like to finally see them getting married, and all that sort of thing. And yeah, so I suppose that's an obvious example, but yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's more engaging that way. And I put an Instagram reel out earlier, for example, and I actually didn't even mention the bride. I showed a picture of her bouquet, the flowers separately, and then ta-da, the bouquet is made. And then, I just phrased it as more of I think the first line was, I should remember this because I literally just put it out this morning. Are you a classic whites and greens kind of person? So it was a question. It was like, and you'll get those people who want that, or it will spark debate as well. Like you might get some people go, no, I don't, I want some color, or, oh yes, beautiful, I love whites and greens, I'm going to book this person or inquire with them. So it's engaging. Along
those lines, that'd be so interesting to go through. And I don't know what your style or aesthetic is, but let's say that you were somebody who wanted to do more whites and greens.
Yeah,
you could hook them with that question of are you a whites and greens kind of gal, and then you could go one of two ways. You could if you are traditional whites and greens, then you would want to talk about how, simplicity, understated elegance, tradition, all of that stuff is, going to allow for the floral to set the backdrop for you connecting with your friends and family. And, they're not going to steal the show, but they're going to accentuate it. Now, if you didn't want something that accentuated the show, but actually was the show, then you could go a different way, and you can say whites and greens are lovely for these kinds of pieces. However, if you really want to wow your guests when they walk into the party, you're going to have to do something that's a little bit more fabulous. And then you could talk about those and why your style, your designs are going to help make that happen. So again, when you know what it is that your client wants, your ideal buyer wants, then you can create the content. Now, you could have the same photo and the same question at the beginning, but what you say after that is going to be what's going to impact and hook them. Absolutely.
I can change the post massively. Gosh, Sam, I could talk a lot about this. If you were available all day, I'm sure we would run till my laptop battery ran out. But it's been really, really fun talking to you. Quickly before we go, where can people, if they want to catch up with you and find out what you're about and maybe listen to your podcast and things like that, where can they find you?
Yeah. So we, all over social media, Ideaction Consulting is our handle on Instagram. We have a Facebook group with a few thousand people in it, and that's Sell Weddings Like a Pro. And you can go to Facebook and hop on in there. Lots of great, advice from peers, and also from me and my wife, who's got a lot of sales experience working for a Four Seasons hotel. And then if you wanted to follow along through the podcast is called Own Your Business. And it's mostly content related to sales, pricing, and copywriting. It's all for wedding professionals, and will help you with practical advice and techniques that you can put into practice while you're listening to the episode.
Absolutely brilliant, and we'll put the links to all those things in the podcast show notes as well, guys. So if you want to, click on there, and we'll put a direct link to the Facebook group and all the social media channels that Sam is on as well. So Sam, thank you once again. It's been a pleasure, and to everyone listening, thank you for joining us and listening. And remember to download, subscribe, follow on, whatever it is your podcast system does, so you can hear more episodes and keep up with the great news. All right. Take care, guys. Flower on. Well, thanks so much for listening all the way to the end of Wedding Florist Social. Remember to hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And if you want access to some free community and support, then head across to Facebook and look me up on the Worldwide Wedding Florist Community Group. I look forward to seeing you there.